Good morning, students. Welcome to Good Samaritan School online classes. Today, we are going to start a new chapter, metals and non-metals. And most of you have done your test properly, and I'm very happy about it. And some of you need to be improved in acid, base, and salt chapter. In coming classes, we'll try to do it in the other way by revising the chapters once again. Okay, this is our new chapter now. And this chapter, metals and non-metal topic, comes under chemistry topic. Okay, let's see the overview of this chapter. What we are going to learn from this chapter. Okay, I'd like to give you a short overview of this chapter, metals and non-metals. So if we want to learn more on metals and non-metal, we should start our class from 9th standard. Okay, in 9th standard, what we learned on elements. Okay, in the second chapter, we learned the separation of components of mixture, right? And in the third chapter, we learned atoms and molecules, right? And that we learned elements. Elements are classified into metals, metalloids, and non-metals. So metals, as we know that they are electropositive in nature, they donate electrons, right? And they are positively charged, that means they are cations. And non-metals, they usually they are in the form of solid, liquid, and gases, and also they are electronegative in nature, that means they receive electrons, right? And also metalloids, if you talk about metalloids, they are having the properties of both metals and non-metal characters. Okay, but in this chapter we are not going to learn much on metalloids. Mainly we are going to concentrate on metals and non-metals. So in metals and non-metals, first of all we are going to see the physical property of metals and non-metals and the chemical properties of metals and non-metals. So when we talk about the physical properties of metals, they are, as you know already about the physical properties, they are hard solids, right? And they are having high melting and boiling point. They are good conductor of heat and electricity. Malleability, that means they can be beaten into sheets, thin sheets. Ductile property, that means they can be drawn into thin wires, and also they have high densities. When we talk about, or when we compare with non-metal physical property, non-metals are, they are not always in solid state, they can be in gaseous as well as in liquid state. They have very less boiling and melting point. They are the bad conductor or poor conductor of heat and electricity. They can be easily brittle, that means they can be broken into broken into pieces. But when we talk about the chemical properties of metal, how they react with oxygen, and how they react with water, and how they are going to react with acids. Not only that, how they are going to react with halogens, how they are going to react with hydrides. So all these things we are going to learn in the chemical properties of metals. When we compare with the chemical properties of non-metal, the same thing we are going to do with the non-metals also. How a non-metal react with oxygen, how they are reacting with steam, and how they could react with acids, and how they are reacting with halogens. So everything we'll be learning on the physical and the chemical properties of metals and non-metals. Okay, this is the basic. We're going to start this chapter. Okay, after that we'll be learning the reactivity series of metals. Reactivity series of metal is nothing but the reactivity property. That's metals are, some metals are highly reactive and some metals are least reactive, that we are going to arrange it in an order. So that is we are going to learn in the reactivity series. You can see here potassium is very much high reactive element, and that is kept on the first place. So potassium is having more that means more reactivity than sodium. And sodium is more reactive than calcium. Calcium is more reactive than magnesium. So as goes on, and you can look at it. What is the least reactive element here, which is given? Platinum, gold, silver. These things are present at the last. It means they are very least reactive. They won't react that much. That is why we are using gold, silver, and platinum as an ornament. We are using, that is why we can wear it, because they are not that much reactive. And the last one is formation of ionic compounds. Okay, how the when the metals and non-metal, when they combine together, how they do? They transfer their electrons. Metals, you all know that metals, they donate an electron. So when metals donate, so who is going to receive that? Is non-metals going to receive that. So that we are going to learn on how the formation of ionic compound, how the ionic compounds are formed, that and what are the properties of ionic compounds, that we are going to learn in this chapter. As we all know that this chapter, we have further topic also. That means the extraction of metal topic is also there, but because of this COVID-19 and the syllabus are reduced, that means we are not going to learn the extraction of metals, okay, the metallurgy process, that we are not going to learn. And also we are not going to learn the corrosion and the rancidity, how to prevent from corrosion, how to prevent from the corrosion, and how to save our metals. That also we are not going to learn. So this is what we are going to learn, the physical properties of metals, in that how the metals are shining, and what are the properties of physical properties, everything. And then completely, and then non-metals physical properties, okay. And there are some exceptional cases in both physical properties. That means all the metals are not hard. There are some exceptional cases are there. And all the non-metals are not brittle, they cannot brittle. There are some non-metals, they are too strong. So that we are going to learn here. And then the chemical properties of metals. And then in the chemical properties, the complete topic we will be learning here. And then what happens when a metal react with water, okay. And these are the chemical properties. And then the chemical non-metal chemical properties also we'll be learning here. And then the metals react, how do metals react with the solutions of other metal salts. So all these things up to here we'll be learning the reactivities, the chemical properties of both metals and non-metals. And here we'll be learning the reactivity series. As we look at here, these are the metals, and it shows the reactivity series of the metals. There are some questions, and then how do metals and non-metal react together. And here everything, the formation of ionic compound, how they form, everything we'll be learning in these pages, okay. And finally we'll be learning the properties of ionic compounds. So up to here, page number 49, we have the syllabus. And all these occurrence of elements or metals, extraction of metals, and these are all we are not going to learn. Extraction, refining of metal, corrosion, the complete corrosion topics, these are the deleted topics. Clear? So up to here, I think you all understand the overview of this chapter, metals and non-metals. Let's learn one by one on metals and non-metals. Let's start with the physical property. Physical properties of a metal consist of, they are hard, they are luxurious, they are sonorous, and they are a good conductor of heat and electricity. They have a high density, and they can be malleable property. They have a ductile property, right? So all these properties talks about the physical properties of metals, okay. If you see in your book, the starting page, you can learn that physical properties of a metal. So you can think of some in the front page, you can look at it. In class 9, you have learned various elements. That means elements are classified into metals and non-metals. Think of some uses of metals and non-metals in your daily life. We have varieties of uses of both non-metals and metals. But if you see the properties of metals, especially metals in their pure state have a shining surface. This property is called metallic luster. It's very, very important. That means they show shining property. How we can know that? Take one iron piece and take a sandpaper, rub that iron piece with the sandpaper. What happens? What you will see? They all, you can see a shining surface which is appeared while we rub that sandpaper with the metal, right? Metal with the sandpaper, right? And you can look at the next topic. Metals, they have the property of malleability. Malleability, that means they can be beaten into thin sheets. That is why we have a fan. Metal blades are there. It talks about metals can be made into thin sheets, right? The vessels we are using in our vessels used for cooking, that means they all used for, yes, they are beaten into thin sheets. The next is the ductility, the ability of a metal to be drawn into thin wires called ductility. And gold is the most ductile metal. You know why I'm telling? You can look at this in the next line itself. Even 1 gram of gold, even we can drawn into thin wire, and it can be it can be stretched up to 2 kilometers. That's what's given here. That means they are more ductile. That means that can be made into thin wires. And you can see in the activity 3.5 what we are learning, that is, start with a question. Can you name some metals that are used for making cooking vessels? Do you know why these metals are used for making cooking vessels? Yes, as we of course we know that, because cooking vessels are made up of metals because they transfer the heat energy to the food material, right? So they transfer. That is what the this activity 3.5 talks about. We can take an aluminium or a copper wire. You can look at it. You can keep it on a stand, a metal wire, and you can fix a pin with a wax. Okay, so first you fix the pin with the wax and keep it on a stand, and then slowly heat the metal from here. So what happened? The metal get heated up and transfer the heat energy from here to here, and while it's heating, the wax started melt and the pin drops down. So what we are understanding from that? We understand that metals are good conductor of heat and electricity, right? And also they have high melting point. They won't melt just like that. So it takes a lot of energy even to melt metals. The best conductor of heat are silver and copper, right? The lead and mercury are comparably poor conductor of heat. So that is why maximum they are not used. Do metals also conduct electricity? Yes, of course. So there is an activity here in page number 39 which talks about how metals they conduct electricity. There is a setup which is kept here, and metals, it talks about the metals are good conductors. That means we can keep there is a gap between A and B clips. You can see that here you can keep any of the metals like copper or aluminium or gold even, right? So what happens if you keep a metal here and combine the clips A and B, definitely the bulb is started to glow. It shows that metals are good conductor of heat and electricity. And you can see a wire which is in your home the copper wire is always coated with a rubber or a plastic coating, and it is actually a PVC, that means polyvinyl chloride. It is one of the plastic. Why we need to cover that wire with these PVCs? Yes, of course, these PVCs are plastics which are the poor conductor of electricity. The PVC is the non-conductor. In other words, they are non-metals, and that is covering the metal, right? Yeah, that is why we can easily touch the wire. What happens when a metal strikes a hard surface? Do they produce a sound? Of course. You can take a hammer and hit that hammer with another metal. What will you hear? You will hear a sound, and that sound shows a ringing sound. That is why we say that metals are all sonorous. That means they produce a ringing sound. But when we talk about these are the properties. What are the properties we learned? We learned that metals are luxurious, metals are hard, metals are in the solid state, and also metals can be malleable. That means they can be beaten into thin sheets. Metals can be ductile, right? And also metals are good conductor of heat and electricity. And then metals produce sound, that's sonorous. When we talk about non-metals, you can see all are quite opposite of it. That means they are not hard, they are soft. And also non-metals are not a good conductor of heat and electricity. They cannot be beaten and made into thin sheets. They cannot drawn into thin wires. And also they are not a good conductors. That means they transfer the heat energy. They are the bad conductors. So these are the properties of non-metals. But here you can see in page number 39, you can see some of the exceptional characters of both metals or non-metals. All metals except mercury exist as solid, and that is why mercury are in the form of liquid. You can see in the thermometers. And also some metals like gallium and cesium having very low melting point that can be melt on your hand or a palm itself. You can take a metal and put it on your palm, it will melt on your palm itself. And some like iodine is a non-metal, but it shines. That is why the property is shining, lustrous property. Some carbon, they are formed in different components, different allotropes. The diamond is one of the allotropes of carbon. They are too hard, hardest substance ever, and they have a high melting point and boiling point. Graphite can easily conduct electricity, but graphite is a non-metal. Some metals are alkali metals. They are metals actually, more reactive metals, but you know one thing, they can be cut by the knife itself. Okay, they have low densities and a low melting point. So that is what we have learned, some of the exceptional characters you can see in both metals and non-metals. There is an activity here at 3.8. I want you to read this activity because the same activity you have seen in 8th standard also. That means most non-metals produce acidic oxides when dissolved in water. On the other hand, most metals give rise to basic oxides. You will learn more about these metal oxides in the next section. Okay, when we are learning about this metal oxides, we need to start the chemical properties. But today we have learned the overview of the complete chapter metals and non-metals, and also the physical properties of metals and non-metals. And this is the end of the topic today. And student, you just go through this complete chapter once again, read the complete book, and if you have any doubt on this topic like physical properties of metals and non-metals, please do ask me in my personal WhatsApp number. Thank you student, and have a nice day.